Manuel, you told us some good news about the cable industry growth statistics this morning. Can you tell me a little bit about how cable can keep the momentum going?
The growth momentum actually has been enabled significantly by the investments in the past 10 years. Huge investments by all of the cable industry in Europe. CapEx levels of 25% and higher. Some companies as high as 50 or 60% even, certain early starts of their growth curve. And so you see the continued broadband penetration as a result of those investments continuing. And I think you should also see, and that's what I discussed this morning, a continued consolidation in the industry. We still have 7,000 cable operators in Europe today, many of whom are subscale, subcritical mass. You need critical mass to be able to continue to go on with the new services, with multi-screen applications, with high-end interactive digital television and the like. And so you'll see significantly more consolidation in the sector, clustered around the larger entities that are currently forming in the market.
Do you think that consolidation is now on a even playing field as far as regulation is concerned, that the regulatory environment will now enable the necessary consolidation to take place?
Yes and no. I think you see a big difference between various countries. There are certain countries where the competition authorities have decided, for instance in the UK or in France, that the whole of the industry should be able to come together. There are many other countries still which are not there yet. So we still have 500 operators in Poland, we are still 350 operators in Germany. And the notion of market definition, which is usually important in deciding these kinds of cases, it still varies greatly per country. Certain countries focus totally on the analog television market still as one of the main KPIs, if you wish, for whether a deal is pro-competitive or not. And other markets and other authorities focus much more on the converged market, on kind of how are these companies going to be competing, investing and competing with the other large operators, triple play or quad play operators, like for instance the incumbent telecom operators. So it's very situational, depends on the country, but I think as the technology develops, as markets develop, and as the general customer base also understands what the role of over-the-top services and others are going to be, that kind of realization will also set in at the regulator.
Okay. Some of the other regulatory issues you have been dealing with for the last few years are copyright reform and the question of whether cable operators are going to be forced to open access to rival providers. Do you think the debate has moved on a little bit, or what do you see happening in both of those areas?
I think you see significant progress, certainly here in Europe, certainly for instance, to give you one example, on the issue on the digital agenda and the focus of European authorities for more broadband in the market and more investments in fiber, which was a big issue like 6-7 years ago. I think very clearly, certainly European authorities, but in many other European countries as well, the notion of technology neutrality, technology agnostic approach to this has improved. If you look at the European Commission documents 5-6 years ago on next generation networks, the word cable didn't even appear in those documents, and that situation has totally changed. So that realization is there. And on the access side, it's a mixed view actually. On this one hand, you have many regulators in Europe decided, for instance, to abolish this famous Market 18, which was access to television services in many countries, and as a market which had to be controlled because it was dominated in the old kind of cable landscape by cable operators. And because of the advent of digital television and IPTV and digital terrestrial television and satellite, many regulators have decided now that's no longer a market to be regulated. So I think the picture overall is pretty positive, but there are still a number of countries and regulators who stick to old-fashioned ideas, and the regulator in this country is one of those.
Yeah. The cable industry has made quite a big deal over the fact that it can really help the EU digital agenda goals be met. How big an opportunity do you think that is for cable more widely in terms of positioning itself and sort of getting the kind of deal it wants from the European Commission?
I think we absolutely still have not used its full potential. You know, we are now offering in many countries, 100 plus megabit services. In some countries even 200, or in Portugal 360. And in the end, it will not only be about speed. A big part of that will also be about providing very high-speed broadband to the enormous mass of small and medium-sized enterprises in Europe, which is a hugely underdeveloped market potential. A group of companies and economically very relevant, which has for a very long time been dependent on fairly expensive and services delivered by the incumbents only. So those are, that's one very, very significant area where we will be delivering more and more services, symmetrical services, for instance, on DOCSIS 3, and in the next couple of years, hugely increased speeds. The theoretical speed levels, I know you've seen it, we've reached speed levels of 1.2, 1.3 gigabit. So we think that's where we're going.
Manuel Kohnstamm, thanks very much.
Thank you. Right, cheers.